and then a desperation of the general population, and then the arrival of a focused focal point or a kind of a more of a fascist national kind of a dictatorship, really. You know, you saw it with the arrival of Adolf Hitler, Mussolini, this type of thing. I know it's hard to imagine that we could see anything like that in the United States, but it's a possibility. And so what we need to do is decide whether or not if this is going to be a controlled landing, right, or it's going to be a total, utter crash.
Well, let me throw this in, because Damon Vickers, the whole issue here is, speaking of David Rockefeller and others have stated what their plan is. They have implemented this implosion. Maurice Strong talks about implementing this implosion on its ashes to build the new international architecture. They're telling the public none of this change exists, while the UN Secretary General writes editorials calling for global government and global carbon taxes, so that we're not part of the debate. They're just denying it's even happening, while in serious intellectual debate, it's all being erected and set up right now. And so my problem is, one of their higher level sales pitches they use is to say, oh, the question is, what type of world government, what type of new world order do you want? Well, how about we have a new world order where we don't have a world government? How about we have a new world order where the central bankers engineering these Ponzi schemes go to jail? How about we have a new world order where we have a global declaration of independence and national sovereignty, instead of being maneuvered into, well, okay, then do you want to have a say in what type of new world order are we going to have? The elite setting up this system won't even allow a real debate. They ridicule anyone that, Limbaugh, Hannity, they still won't even admit this is happening after decades of saying it doesn't exist. I mean, you understand where I'm going with this. We don't have a say in how this government changes. And I understand it's sold as an evolution and a new world order, but the new world order has been engineered. Go ahead.
Ad infinitum, and yet nothing will get accomplished and nothing will get done. We're all afraid of change. We're all afraid of things arriving that we don't know anything about. But I think we'd have to all agree and admit to ourselves that the present order of things, the order of wiping out fish stocks, the order of wiping out, the resources, and everybody believes that they have the sovereign right to rape and pillage their forests and their the world's nature. Which
I know, but the globalists always say
the environment, or we're all going to die.
I know, but the globalists always say they're doing this to stop it when they are the progenitors of most of it.
Well, I think there's a desire for those. There is a desire for certain people to try to bring order to a world that is entirely disorderly and headed towards what could be unfathomably about suffering. We've got 1 billion people on the planet right now, Alex, that are starving right now. 1 billion of them. That's a very large percentage of the population. We can look in the United States. How many people are, what do they say, 1 out of 5 kids' families are on food stamps right now.
Damon.
Clearly the order that we have right now is not working. We need something new.
I understand that there are a lot of problems and crises, but when I read the Royal Commission on Population, secretly put out by the British government, now declassified 50 years ago, they said, we're going to create globalization to control the third world. We're going to keep them from industrializing, even though that would clean up the environment and lower their numbers, because we're going to let the people bomb be used as a weapon against them. Just like the UN claims.
We never should have gone into the third world in the first place. And every time that we go in there, we create more havoc. Even the compassionate things that we do in terms of providing aid and care to them only further exacerbates the problem, and it just gets worse and worse.
Well, Damon, let me just say this. I totally understand where you're coming from when you say the existing order is a bunch of criminal pirates raping and pillaging and looting. The problem is... This is where we agree. This is where we agree, Alex. But it's a two-face. You've got two faces, one here and one on the back. The globalists are the pirates. They then rotate their face around as the saviors, and everything they're proposing just gives them more power and has this frosting, this sugar coating of helping the poor and helping the environment. When, I mean, if they wanted to help the environment, they'd be restricting genetic engineering. Well, you
you talked about David Rockefeller, and I know it's convenient to demonize the Rockefellers, okay? But we wouldn't have much of the national park system in the United States if it weren't for Lawrence Rockefeller. There'd be no Teton National Park. There'd be no U.S. Virgin Islands National Park. There'd be no Acadia National Park. There'd be no, I mean, the list goes on and on. These are people that long ago made a tremendous amount of wealth, and then they began to turn their wealth to greater causes in trying to serve humanity. I think all of us would agree that that none of us like seeing suffering, and to the extent that we can move the planet towards alleviating human suffering and more balance, I think we're heading in the right direction.
Hey, Damon, I appreciate you coming on, and I want to have you back up again because this is intriguing. But this is the slick New World Order sales job, because I recognize what you're doing. I've heard this from other high-powered people. Hold on, but I've been given this speech before. Hold on. I've been given this speech before. What I'm telling you is the fruits of the people captaining our planet right now are, look, the Rockefellers set up eugenics. The Rockefellers set up CPSing people's children and the family courts. They set up the Human Genome Project in Cold Springs Harbor. I understand they also set up some of the national parks because they wanted places where there were no people.
That's good. That's good. Well, you know, what do we do? Our nation, the United States, enjoys a very high standard of living. Many of us sit around on lazy boy chairs. We fill our faces with macaroni and cheese, and in the evening we watch the Newlywed Game and ridiculous programming. We medicate ourselves, right? And we do this with debt that we foist onto our own Ponzi scheme.
Yes, we're an obese, decadent society that won't even engage in birth control, so we just abort our babies. We're a throwaway society, and so now we're being thrown away by the global system.
How fair is that we in the United States live that way, and then you've got people in India, in Bangladesh, in Vietnam that are living in making 67 cents an hour, with members of their family starving to death while we live this way. Is that compassionate?
Well, I'll tell you this. A lot of them are doing, hold on, a lot of them are doing better now than they were just 20 years ago.
I'll grant you that.
Because of the limited, but that's the globalist sales pitch, is guilt to what's left of the middle class here, when really...
Forget about the guilt.
But then our money, what's left of us, gets transferred to the bankers. It doesn't get to some African.
No desire to do that. We've got a rising unemployment rate, and the reason why we have a rising unemployment rate is we simply cannot match the unit cost, the labor cost, the unit cost of production that can be achieved in Vietnam and Crete.
But how does lowering our standard of living, when it's all fiat to begin with, how does that help Africa and Asia and Latin America? That's actually going to hurt them because they're not even going to have their customer anymore. This is how globalization and the giant sucking sound, the race to the bottom, destroys all sides in the end, except for the finance oligarchs.
Well, if we don't try to create some type of a balance globally, Alex, we will be racing.
All right, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this then, because you are an honest guy who'll talk about the truth on national television. What do we do then? If Damon Vickers was steering things, what would you do?
Well, I think we have to create a global environment whereby whereby we have balance, and that's essentially the problem. I think on a planetary basis, we're living out of balance. Our own country is out of balance. We cannot go and take 1 million tons of herring out of the ocean and know that it doesn't affect the whales and
the oceans are really running out of fish right now. But the issue here is, again, I want to go back to this.
The issue is realizing that heaven is a place that is something that the closest our fondest imaginings of what heaven is here on our planet. We need to take care of the planet that we live in, and not be raping it and think it's ours to exploit. We have to sustain our home, and we're not treating it respectfully.
Well, I'll tell you this: putting a tax on carbon isn't going to do that
respectfully either in the planet.
But Damon, putting a tax on carbon dioxide is a giant distraction from real environmental policies that we could agree to carry out and make profitable. I mean, are you for?
I mean, the government that we have in place right now is a total disaster. This whole move towards healthcare and is just insane. It's just making our government has become a giant tumor, a malignant tumor that is sucking the life out of this country. It's horrific.
Yeah.
These are not easy. These are not.
But
easy,
Damon, that's my point. Is the same globalists that brought us into imbalance certainly nudged us in that way, using our own weaknesses to get us dependent on them. They got us dependent in this largesse, decadent, laissez-faire welfare system so that we could be controlled. I have their own documents. They brag that they engineered this, and then now they're offering the solution that sounds somewhat similar to what you're saying. I'm saying the problem is it's a setup.